So as we head into 2015, we know Republicans will control both houses of Congress. We know President Obama will keep on using his prized and infamous pen. And we know the race for the White House will likely, very likely, in fact, include a Clinton and a Bush. But there are a lot of political questions left to be answered in the coming year, and we want to tackle several of those tonight, beginning with Hillary Clinton and what we can expect from her if and when she announces her candidacy for 2016. Will she be able to fight off any challenges with her in her own party? And will she be able to distance herself from her former boss, one of the most unpopular presidents in modern American history? She certainly didn't get off to a great start this year. It's almost impossible to tell the difference between the two. Listen.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Don't let anybody tell you that, it's corporations and businesses that create jobs.
And from a Clinton to a Bush. Well, let's start right there. You want to do this? Let's do this one. Kimberly started off right here. She's made a lot of blunders this year. Can she overcome that?
She sure has. I mean, maybe by sheer force of the will of the last name and their fundraising machine and through the strength and kind of caliber of her husband, right? I mean, you're kind of getting two for one there. That's really what her best asset is as far as people are considered when you look at her qualifications and her capability. But she's a very polarizing figure. She certainly hasn't showed her best game in the past year. And you really have to think about that. Is this an office that she's ready to hold at this point in her life? Or is it something that is going to prove to be too challenging from what we have seen in the missteps in the past? If that is any indication, then not ready for prime time.
I mean, ready for prime time? Hillary had a very tough 2014 from saying that they were broke when they left the White House. There was just stumble after stumble after stumble.
But I'll tell you, this is the problem with trying to be a front runner for 3 years. I mean, it's tough enough being a front runner for 2 months, let alone trying to do it from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, and I think what she did here was to try to finally cut it right down the middle. When you do that, you're bound to make mistakes. Now, is she ready for it? Of course she's ready for it, more so than any Republican candidate they got out there. But having said that, it's going to be, she may have drawn a lucky break here, and that is for 2 reasons. One, she will get a candidate on the left in the primary. She needs one. It'd be important for her to have that. So Bernie Sanders or somebody decides to get in.
I'm hearing that a lot lately.
Yeah, well, it's be a good thing to do. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a good thing. Elizabeth Warren said she's not going to do it. Bernie Sanders said he may do it. Having somebody on the left of her, she'll crush them, but it'll be a good thing. Positions are better. And the other thing is the economy is now starting to boom.
Before I bring it to these guys, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, or Joe Biden, which would be the most formidable foe to Hillary?
Oh, Warren, but she's not going to run.
Joe Biden, of course.
Yeah.
Just for entertainment purposes, right? Hillary has a lot of problems, but I think one of her biggest issues, if you look at the 2014 midterm elections, what did a lot of the candidates run on? An anti-Obama platform. When President Obama goes through these next few years not getting along with Republicans, that anti-Obama sentiment is still going to be there. And Hillary Clinton is going to need to distance herself from that while at the same time trying to take Obama's far left base. Now, I don't know if she's going to be able to do that without coming off as very transparent. You saw the clip of her saying, well, we don't want to say that businesses create jobs. She was kind of trying to echo Elizabeth Warren there.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very hard for her to distance herself from Obama, which she has to do to get away from that 2014 landslide of Republican votes and to get, into the far left base. But the other issue here is midterm elections are very different than presidential elections in the sense that low information voters tend to turn out more for presidential elections. So she does have that going for her, and a lot of those low information voters are going to be coming out of the women's lobby and groups like that. So Hillary Clinton is still popular, and she's going to be challenged on the left, hopefully, but I don't know if she's going to be really having that much of a problem.
Jesse, quick thought on Hillary. I'm going to bring Jeb Bush to you afterwards.
Sure. I mean, Hillary racks up gaffes left and right. She's a political klutz. We've all seen the examples of it. She's going to really anger the blacks when she goes after the first black president, when she's trying to differentiate herself from him. And that's going to be a problem because she needs them to be fired up, but she also needs whites. She's going to have Bubba Baylor out there, too. And she tried once to differentiate herself with President Obama, and she blew it. Remember, she was like, well, I don't think that not doing stupid stuff, that's not really a foreign policy. And then she got blowback on it, and then all of a sudden she apologized for it. So I don't think she's really deft enough to handle these thorny issues.
Let me do this. Let's go from a Clinton to a Bush. Next up, Jeb has surged to the top of a lot of new polls, possible GOP contenders in 2016, following an announcement he's actively exploring a bid. Will the former Florida governor keep any other Republicans from throwing their hats in? And that's a big if. Will Chris Christie jump in? Would he have to soften his tough image? And what about Rand Paul? He'd likely inherit his father's voting base, but that could be, that grassroots support. Could he bring that grassroots support to the next level? So there's a lot to chew on there. Jeb, Rand, Christie, Rubio, your thoughts?
Right. I think Jeb coming in basically pushes Romney out, so he's not coming in. So Christie and Jeb are going to fight for who the establishment candidate is. Jeb has the money, he's got the machine, he's got the contacts, he's got the brand name, but he's soft on immigration, and he's kind of a rhino according to the base. Christie's got the swagger, he's got a lot more charisma than Jeb, so he's going to have to show his donors that he can kind of keep his, language together, not explode. And I think what he needs to do mostly is beat Jeb in the debates, but he also needs to really turn his fire on Democrats and not attack his own Republican players, because no one wants to see that. So I think if those guys fight it out, though, you could have a conservative come up and then kind of watch those guys split the vote and then take fire.
Katie, let's bring in Rand Paul and Marco Rubio. There are two also that want to kind of compete with Chris Christie and Jeb Bush. Although, look, you have Jeb Bush and you have everyone who's not Jeb Bush now.
Right. I think it's way too early to decide what issues are going to be the ones that voters decide to pick a candidate on. Right now, it's simply about name recognition, which is why Jeb Bush is at the top of the polling right now. Mitt Romney even is still polling at those higher levels, even though he's probably not going to run again. At least the conservative grassroots hopes that he doesn't. Chris Christie is polling high. But there's a lot of candidates that have been talked about on the ground level that aren't coming up in these name recognition polls, like, Scott Walker, Bobby Jindal. Marco Rubio hasn't really been showing up in these polls.
Pence.
I think Mike Pence. I think Rand Paul has a lot more.
Perry still wants to
Rick
run.
Perry. I think Rand Paul has a lot more support than these early polls are giving him credit for.
So if we do this, you want to jump in here, Bobby?
God, I'm going to just try to get.
But when you think of establishment and non-establishment, and that really is going to be an issue at every presidential race. Just give me.
You said like politics 101. Well, go ahead.
No. Do you disputing the fact there's going to be favorites among the establishment and favorites among the non-establishment?
I don't buy the establishment and the. I think your base, as you consider your base, as far right conservative, is a very small, much smaller than the Democratic base in that sense. Which means you don't have Jeb Bush can walk through that race. I've told you this for a year. He worries me more than anybody else for one specific reason. He can pull an Hispanic vote, which they desperately need, or a Republican can't win the country. And the other thing is, he knocks Marco Rubio out of the race right away. All the money goes out of Florida. He's gone.
There's no doubt that Jeb Bush throwing his hat in the ring definitely puts.
And the rest of these people are a joke.
Scott Walker in Marco Rubio's.
Well, they're not, Bob. They enjoy a lot of support for good reasons because of their policies, fiscal and otherwise, from people who vote, Bob, and who are going to show up, the same people that showed up for the midterm elections. And don't discount Rand Paul. He is going to be one of the early favorites, much like his father. He's got a lot of grassroots support. He's done very well even with youths and amongst minorities and African Americans reaching out to those communities.
He's the only one I don't discount.
Let's see how this settles.
You put Scott Walker and ask many people who know Scott Walker, they think he's the
that's name recognition, but great campaigns can change that.
Right. We have almost 2 years, Bob. I mean, so there's going to be a lot.
You have a lot less than that.
Can I throw this around here very quickly? We want to move on to the next topic. A couple of names very quickly, just fast around the horn. Mike Huckabee runs or doesn't run? Anyone?
Doesn't run.
I think runs.
Runs, doesn't run. Your thoughts?
Runs.
Ben Carson runs or doesn't run?
I don't care.
Doesn't care.
Love him.
Ben Carson doesn't
I'd
worry
love him if he was my doctor.
Scott Walker, we talked about. Bobby Jindal. My doctor.
He is a pediatrician. He's perfect for you, Bob.
Scott Walker, guys, you got Bob. This guy has won three different elections in a state that's very, very liberal.
He's battle tested. Scott Walker is battle tested to the core.
Battle tested to the core.
Every single thing at him.
This guy,
he's won every single time.
A Wisconsin governor can win against Jeb Bush and the rest of this field. It's not going to happen.
No, but Bob, you have to look at the last presidential elections on the GOP side. You look at Mitt Romney, who's just like a lot like Jeb Bush. John McCain. The reason they lost is because the grassroots support that is on the ground doing the work with voters isn't getting out to vote for them.
But keep this in mind: the last three Republican nominees were all moderates. And they win. Once they get through Iowa, they're
not
done.
Saying moderates. You're saying it's more centrists, right?
Centrists, yes.
Okay, but you're saying Jeb Bush is the one who worries you the most. Who would be considered the clearly the most centrist of all the people we just talked about?
And Chris Christie worries me the least.
Why do you think Jeb Bush can win if John McCain can't win and Mitt Romney can't win?
Because Jeb Bush can win the Hispanic vote in Florida.
And Florida.
And I mean, just that alone. You take Florida,
Bob,
you
and
win.
one more thing. The last time that Scott Walker was in the forefront, all you Democrats were running across state lines, scared to death of him, okay?
No,
so I think
no,
he is a threat.
No,
He'd make a great candidate for sure. Bob's
unions,
focusing on general election, right? You would say he thinks that Jeb is the best candidate in a general election to go head-to-head against
I think he's the best in the
Democrat.
primaries, too.
The problem is that
Has a popular
same thing
appeal.
we've talked about 100 times. Common Core will eat him alive. He has to figure that out fast. All right, let's go to the next one. To the pending war between President Obama and Republican-controlled Congress. As we told you yesterday, the president is already threatening to use his veto pen.
I haven't used the veto pen very often since I've been in office. Now I suspect there are going to be some times where I've got to pull that pen out.
So how should GOP leadership respond? Krauthammer says, bring it on.
The Republicans ought to say, bring it on, Mr. President. With Harry Reid gone and Mitch McConnell running the Senate, they are able to enact agenda. They have an agenda, and they should be willing to pass whatever they can and to dare the president to go ahead and to veto.
Legislating might be the last thing on Speaker Boehner's mind, however. He's facing the resignation of Representative Michael Grimm, and also his third in charge, Steve Scalise, is embroiled in controversy over his past association with racist David Duke. There are even reports today that he might lose his speakership, or at least his speakership isn't a slam dunk going this time around. Bob, Scalise and Grimm, Republicans, in a bit of trouble right now. Is it time to maybe rethink the John Boehner speakership?
That's as locked a bet you can possibly have. He's going to be speaker. There's nobody who these people are, nor do they care. But secondly, let's keep this in mind. Already Obama has broken with his Democratic base and signed and agreed on a trade deal with the Republicans. He's got to get a couple of things done. The other thing, I know this is going to drive you all crazy, but he has had the best last 2 months of the 6 year of a presidency ever. His numbers, he's the first person to get his numbers go positive from negative. He went up.
Well, when
and
they're
the other reason
that low,
is the economy. No, wait. The economy is booming, and the economy is booming. 5% growth. 5% growth in the third quarter.
Bob,
Tell me the last time a Republican pulled that off.
Tell that to someone that doesn't have a job, Bob. To someone that's been out of work for
5.8%.
Those are just numbers. They don't mean anything to the regular guy that's had trouble putting food on the table.
Just get used to it. This economy is getting a lot better. The consumer.
It seems like a long way.
Can we just point something out about, no, Bill Clinton and Ronald Reagan all had of their highest approval ratings as they left office. So,
Who did?
Yes, Clinton and Reagan both had increasing approval ratings as they left. Also,
Not 6 years.
They also had economies that were improving going into the last 2 years. So, yes, the economy is improving. I'll give you that. I will give you the economy is improving. But it's 6 years in already. I mean, every single recession seems.
All I'm saying
but
is that
how
could be
could
as
it
much of a
not with
drag.
all the stimulus and the money put towards it and the easing and everything? I mean, come on.
I thought
6
you guys
years?
said that would not work.
Show me something. Bob, I'm telling you, I think things should be better than they are right now. I don't know anybody that's going to disagree with that. When it's that low, how can it not get a little bit better? My God.
Are you confident with John Boehner leading the House and McConnell leading the Senate?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Well, it is. I mean, they're establishment Republicans.
Right. What I was hearing just last night from people in the know. But there is a very strong movement that would like to see a new change in leadership for some of the very reasons that we are discussing here. But then what Bob is saying is also true. Boehner is very entrenched in that position. He has a tremendous amount of experience in it, and plus control and power over people's committee assignments, seats, etc. So they're not going to want to buck the big guy. He's the one who has the power over that. So they can say, look, I'm sorry, I'd like to give you a vote for this other guy, but I don't want to lose my seat because I have to be responsible and for my constituents.
Extremely well done politically.
Exactly, she's exactly right. They're both locks. They are
locks. Who wants this one first? You happy with Boehner and McConnell as your leaders going forward?
I'm okay with McConnell. I think that Boehner has made a lot of really bad decisions and a lot of really bad deals with the White House when the White House wasn't willing to reach back. There are plenty of other people who are qualified.
Are you surprised Boehner stood behind Scalise, given what we know about Scalise now and is speaking to the David Duke group, whatever it was, KKK?
I think if this guy was like a second or third year guy, then he'd probably cut him loose. But he's the number 3 guy in the House right now, and he's not going to cut him loose just off something that
because he's number
far
3.
back. Well, I mean, listen, he's good friends with them. It does look bad. It's not getting the media push that maybe you'd expect if there was a different news environment. So I think they're just going to try to wait and see.
All right.
All right, that was interesting.
That was good. All right, I'm going to leave it right there. Next.